Hello and welcome to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy.
And me, Dipti Solanki. We bring you insights and stories from inside the therapy room.
So our guest this week is Ben McKie, and I've known Ben for about 30 years. We met...
Wow, that's a long time.
It's a long time. And we were studying our psychotherapy training at the same time, but we were on different cohorts. And we met at a workshop and we sort of stayed in touch on and off over that time. It's a long time, and we've probably watched each other's, I don't know, profession or
journeys unfold.
Journey, yeah. So there's a few therapists in my life that have stayed there, and he'll be great. He'll be great coming on the podcast, and he will talk about his retreats in the desert. He'll talk about other projects that he's involved with, how he works as a therapist, not just in the room, but outside, and how he's worked on himself.
I get the sense that he's really open to sharing his journey as well, which is always super fascinating.
Yeah, well, I think if you open, you're open to talk about yourself, it gives other people permission to talk about themselves
and also recognise some of their story in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great conversation.
So Ben, thanks for coming on Bunch of Therapists. So I'd like to hear from you, or we would, about why you went into therapy at the beginning. How did it all start for you?
Okay, so I was about 26, 27 years old, just separated from a relationship. I had two young daughters, and I was struggling a bit emotionally, but also just, I felt quite displaced, like I didn't know what to do with myself. And my mum, bless her cotton socks, had given me a number of a therapist about 3 years prior to this. And this number was folded up on a tiny little piece of paper right in the bottom of my wallet. And I was living with a friend of mine in Camden, and he was a musician, so it was a bit raucous there. And I remember I got home one evening and I was just like, I need some help, I need some support. So I pulled out this number and I called and left a message. This was back in the day of answer machines and all that jazz.
And there was no websites or no socials, you just got bits of whatever,
So I gave this guy a call, and then I started to see him on a regular basis. It was quite intimidating at first. I think just because I wasn't really used to talking so openly in general, let alone with a man that I'd never met before, And how I got into the turning point for me was there was a session that we had, and this is like etched in my brain, and in my whole kind of organism, because it changed my life, this one moment. And what happened was I was sitting there and I turned to him and I said, I'd do anything for my children. And he kind of took a moment and he looked at me and he said, well, that's not really true, is it, Ben? Because you wouldn't stay with your partner for them. And in that moment, I felt this, like I just kind of shut down. And it was like right at the end of the session. So I left and I was walking, and I walked for about 5 miles, and it was pissing down with rain.
What were you feeling?
I was raging. I was like, wait till I fucking see him next week. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. And I was so angry and indignant, and by the time I got back to where I was living, I'd calmed down, and then I started to get reflective, and I was like, why am I so angry? What is it that I'm so angry about? And it was like, oh, I'm angry because it's the truth, and it's hard for me to hear that. And it was from then I started to think, what other narratives do I create that are completely untrue? So it sent me into this kind of very reflective space. And because I was in therapy, obviously that, I had it weekly, but I was reflecting outside of that. And it was just a major turning point for me, that realization that, I tell myself a lot of stuff that isn't true.
But I think a lot of people do that at times, don't they? And they believe their own story, where actually it's a bit fabricated from the truth.
But actually, that's oftentimes all we have, right? Until we can be curious about what else there could be.
Yeah. But in a way, this is how I think our jobs are, right? As therapists, it's like you're a thought disruptor. You're here to shake it up a little bit and ask people, is that really true? Or is that just an exquisite narrative that you've created to make yourself feel better or to keep yourself stuck? So for me, it was a pinnacle.
So what was it like for you going back the following week after you'd done the anger bit and then you reflected? Did you tell him you were angry at first?
I did, yeah. I said to him, well, I've had a bit of an epiphany. And I was really angry with you, and this is what happened, this is how it was, and this is what I understand now. And then after about 6 months of working with this guy, he kind of said to me, have you ever thought about like doing any training? And I was just like, no, it's not for me, you know. I like to think and understand, and I'm curious, but I'm not a therapist. And he kind of pursued that topic for quite some time. And I think after about a year or a year and a half, he convinced me to do like a foundation course. And once I completed once I started the foundation course, that was it. I was in, like, being in a group of people where I could, I don't know, let myself go. And
they're all different people. I remember like showing up to training, you think, God, these people are all different. I've never met all these different people in one room.
Right. Different ages, different ethnicities, different religions. And for me, because I grew up in lots of different countries, I was exposed from a very young age to lots of different cultures.
In what way?
My mum was a bit of a nomad, so my mum was a bit of a hippie. So we used to travel all through Europe, and we spent a lot of time in Egypt and North Africa. We lived in Trinidad for a couple of years. So I don't know, maybe in a way, being in a group where there are people that are curious and there's lots of different colours and classes in the room, it was comfortable for me, you know. And I was just so fascinated by the topic, you know, just by being curious and understanding, and then becoming aware of group process for the first time. That was very inspiring for me.
Well, I always say that your first group's your family, whatever setting that is. And then when you turn up, you behave sort of similar.
Yeah.
And then people eventually, when they all feel more comfortable in the group to challenge you, then they let you know.
That's right.
And you think, oh, okay.
Back at the dinner table.
Yeah, that's it.
And you spoke about your mum being a bit of a nomad, and your dad was a Theravada monk.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. How did that impact you, and how has it impacted your therapy journey, if at all?
So he was from Burma, my father. I think I've always had a connection with Eastern philosophies and practices. So, you know, maybe that comes partly from that. But my father didn't really have much influence on me. So my mum and dad were separated, and then he died many, many years ago. Well, my father was a Theravada monk, and he met my mother here.
What's the Theravada monk?
It's a form of Buddhism.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you get different kind of
different
tribes.
branches,
And I was a bit estranged from my father, so I didn't really have much of a relationship with him until later.
Okay.
But when I was young, I was into like Kung Fu and martial arts, and in the philosophy that surrounds all that, which is Buddhism and Taoism. So it's a strange thing, but I can't say it's not my father, and I don't need to, but there was always an Eastern influence from that side of my family.
Well, you knew it existed.
I knew it existed.
Sometimes that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, but also the food we used to eat, and you know, when I'd go and see other members of the family. So it was like a distant connection, but it's been with me throughout my life, you know. So it's been quite monumental, I think, in my practice, for sure. It was probably only in the last 15 years that I started to kind of integrate some of it into the desert trips that I do and stuff like that. And that was more of a kind of organic phenomenon about me being more interested in using the body and mobilizing energy and, you know, getting people to express anger by using different methods. And also my own frustration of just sitting in a consulting room for many years. And I think it was about 5 years. I was very well behaved and very boundaried and did everything by the book. Excuse me. And then I started to just feel, maybe a bit arrogantly or obnoxiously, that I could do more with these people if I could get them outside. And
So how did you sort of get it all set up? The you know, going to the desert retreats. Really?
It started. That's a long story, but I think the beginning of it, or maybe it was a segue, was that this young woman came in for the first time to see me when I was working in Wimpole Street, and she had severe anxiety, and she couldn't look at me, and she couldn't sit still, and she was really uncomfortable. And I don't know what it is in me, but I just said, let's go for a walk. And she was like, okay. And as soon as we got outside the door, of course, we're not sitting opposite each other, we're side by side. She doesn't have to look at me. So she starts to feel more comfortable. She's talking more freely. We walked around for about 20 minutes. And then we sat down and in a park and just had a little chat. And then I said, you ready to go back? And we went back to my office. And then we did some amazing work from there. And that was almost like the foundation of it. Because I was curious as to what happened for her in that moment and how was it.
So she was able to shift a bit.
She
by
could
walking.
shift, yeah, because it takes the focus somewhere else, no? And there's also lots of distractions and stuff coming, environmental cues. And then for me, it just kind of sealed the fact for me that I need to bring more of this kind of outdoors work into my practice. So the long story that I'm going to try and make as short as possible is back in 1979, when I was a very little boy, I was 10 years old. I was in Egypt with my mum, and we were down south in Luxor. My mum's an architect, so she's always been into kind of Islamic buildings and has had a keen interest in you know, Egypt in particular, but also a lot of Africa. And she'd heard, we were working our way back up to Cairo, and she'd heard of this little oasis called Siwa. And Siwa is in the western part of the Sahara, but it's quite close to the border of Libya. It's about 125 kilometers from the border of Libya. And at that time in 79, there were no roads in there. There was nothing there. You had to like get, you know, you had to ride a camel or get a 4x4. But you also had to have permission. So we went to the authorities and asked for permission to go to this very remote place. And they were like, there's absolutely no way we're letting you anywhere near there, because Gaddafi was kicking off a bit and it was a bit unsafe. But Siwa has a place, Siwa is a place that has history of people going in search of kind of self-understanding and meaning. So there is a ruins there called the Temple of the Oracle, or the Temple of Amun. And it's allegedly where Alexander the Great went to consult the Siwan Oracle to ask if he was the son of Zeus. And when you go to those ruins and you stand there, energetically, you just know some serious stuff happened here, you know, back in the day.
So you did get there then?
We did get there, roll on like 25 years later. And I was actually in the US at the time, and my mum was doing a trip from the bottom of Africa and working her way up. And she calls me and says, guess where I am? And I say, where are you, Mum? And she says, I'm in Siwa. Do you remember that little oasis that we tried to go to 25 years ago? And I said, oh, yeah, I remember that. She said, you've got to come and check this place out. So I did. And as soon as I got there, first of all, I have a kind of connection to Egypt, you know, and the country, the smell. So as soon as I got off the plane, I'm straight back there. Loads of stuff from my childhood's coming up. Arabic starting to come back to me. And then I get to this oasis, which is a long drive from Cairo. It's about 8 hours. Wow. And after a few days there, I was sitting just staring at a dune and contemplating, not about anything deep and meaningful, but I was just kind of existing. Then I looked at my watch and I was like, holy shit, I've been sat here for 3 hours, still, just still. Now, my life in London for many years is like, you know, every minute counts, right? And I'm always moving from one place to the other, and there's never enough hours in the day. And all of a sudden I find myself in this environment where I've been still for 3 hours, you know? And I looked at my mum and I said to my mum in that moment, I've got to do some work here, because the environment is so amazing that it does most of the work for you. And that was it. 12 months later, I made some connections in Siwa, made a good friend, Sharif, who had all these camels. And I took a group of 7, I think it was 7 or 8. And we literally got on camels. We had a crew with us, like a cook, some camel guides, a desert guide. And we rode into the desert 5 days.
Wow.
So I was doing like individual work with them in the morning, group work in the evening, doing some Taoist practices, a little bit of kickboxing. And that was the beginning of the desert trips, which is like 15, 16, 17 years ago now.
So where did you get all your people from to come? You just...
Well, interestingly, at the beginning, I was just putting it out through my network. And a lot of my colleagues were saying, Ben, it's very, you know, it's very controversial, taking people to the desert. How are you going to manage boundaries in a boundless place?
They all had an opinion.
They all had an opinion, which is fair enough. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But so I put it out through my network, and then people just came, you know. And then a couple of years after I'd been doing it more regularly, so I was running 2 or 3 groups a year, then the same people that were saying, Ben, it's a bit controversial, were like, Ben, do you need a co-facilitator? But from there was like the beginning of, that was my passion in working outdoors, outside. Also, I don't know, there's so many factors, you know, Michaela, because it's about getting people out of their day-to-day environment, out of the roles they have to play, their comfort zone, a different climate, different culture. And I think what it does is, even on the journey, you know, the long drive, people are unraveling because there's a lot of fear that comes up.
What's going to happen here? What we're going to do?
A lot of anxiety.
Really far.
Exactly. And my theory is that the desert, like, we all have an internal representation of a desert, which is a kind of vast place that we don't like to go within. And what I see happen, and there's a parallel process to the work that happens there, is when people first arrive, they're scared. You know, there's anxiety, there's fear, it's a bit intimidating. And by day 3, people see the beauty in everything that's there, that's before them. And I think the parallel process is the internal kind of integration of what's happening, what's coming up in them, what they're able to be with. Because in a way, you know, the environment provides the space for people to connect with themselves, parts of themselves that they know, but that they've really lost touch with. So it's almost like a beautiful integration process of old and new. And it helps people and enables people to change the narrative that we were talking about earlier, you know, because it's not, there's one way of looking at things, but, you know, if we change the way we look at things,
but how long are they in the desert now? You know, when you're doing your... It's changed
now. It's changed a little bit. A lot of the work I do there is, I do a lot of leadership work there, so it's a bit more focused, more objective based. But I also do, I still run the groups, but I don't have the camels anymore.
What do you have?
I've got several buildings now. All of the buildings on our land are made out of raw materials, so all made out of mud brick and rock salt. And the dojo is where we do meditation, I do martial arts with people, and we do the group work in there. And I have a little office next to it, and then we have 2 other houses and an outbuilding, a kind of storage building. And it's a farm, so we grow dates and olives, and that helps sustain the farm. We have animals, goats, sheep, donkey, chickens.
What you've shared is pretty phenomenal, first of all. I just want to say that. And when you were initially talking about taking people through the desert on camels, I felt a certain sense of fearfulness. And then you shared that powerful analogy of the desert within. So I'm really intrigued about the kind of transformations that you've seen, that space has facilitated?
Yeah.
Would you be able to share some of that?
Yeah, for me, you know, I think there are several factors, right? One is it's the environmental change. Two is you're pulling the people out of their day-to-day existence. But it's also, you know, it's about the immersive process, right? So people are not leaving and having to feed their kids or respond to work duties. You know, they're really in their process. And I guess what I see and notice is you can make very radical change in like 7 days when you're working with the body and mind in an environment like that, because it's an immersion, because you're mobilizing, you know, yourself physically and psychologically and emotionally. And this is a big part of my belief. You know, if I'm honest, some people aren't going to like this, but therapy is not enough. Talking to someone can help, but really you have to work with the whole organism in order to create change, because real change comes from within. No, it's not just from here or from here. It's, you have to manifest the change in your physical
I really
self.
believe that. I think people used to laugh at me when I was sort of going on my journey, where I had 27 years of therapy, but I'd done self-development, and there was always another group I turned up to, and then another group, self-development here. I used to say I'm joined this spiritual program, if it's Buddhism or whatever, and they'd be laughing. But I said, listen, I'm just sitting here until something happens.
Yeah.
You know, because I think therapy, 1 hour a week wasn't enough for me.
And for me, it's the, I don't know, I suppose there's parts of me that feel we need to like move on a little bit. We all got to catch up, you know, and you know, with the advances in neuroscience and everything that we can do, see, feel, hear, touch now, you know, there's lots of stuff that has been really progressive, and lots of the old Western philosophies, even straight down to traditional Chinese medicine, which have always been poo-pooed by the West. Now what we find is that in a lot of the herbs that are used in Chinese medicine, they're actually in a lot of the Western medicines in their original format. So,
and even the Chinese body clock, like I remember, you know, if someone's is likely to share, well, I keep getting a lot of chest infections, we know, right?
Yeah.
The lungs, grief, all of that. You say, well, has there been a grief? How do you know that? But the knowledge is there, it's ancient, and it's for us to draw upon. So, and that just helps our clients to understand themselves better. 100%.
I mean, for me, you know, to come back to your question, Dipti, the transformation is partly about that as well. It's about the integration of ancient wisdom with modern science, you know, and above all, I think it's relationship. No? It all comes down to like relationship, because if people don't trust me, they're not coming to the desert with me anyway.
Yeah, sure. So what's it like when you come back and then work with clients do you work in the room? Do you work online?
I work online. It's not my favourite thing.
Yeah.
But
we talked about that, didn't we? We didn't. Yeah, I prefer in the room.
I think it's changed a lot for me since COVID. Like I got more used to it, you know. But I never used to really like it. But I did have clients like in different countries, so I kind of had to a degree. Now I'm okay with it. It's useful for me because it means I can see people when I'm in Egypt.
Yeah.
So like everything in life, you know, it's about polarities, right? There's good and bad, but I'm also, you know, there's some people who don't want to work online. You know, I have you know, several clients that just like, if I'm not here, they don't want to bother, and that's okay. Like I get that, you know, because you know, I may feel similar, you know, with my therapist. So so I'm in the room, but just less than I was. And when I come back from the desert, it's always a bit of a transitional period, because of course I've been in my happy place and I've got all this space and the sun's always out and the sky is huge. And with the animals, I'm totally slowed down.
And what's it like to come back to the concrete jungle?
Well, the difficulty is that, you know, as soon as I had this process, actually, let me share this with you because it's interesting. But the first 3 to 5 years, 3 or 4 years that I was doing the desert trips, every time I'd come back, I'd land at Heathrow and it would be grey and it'd be wet, you know, and I'd have this, like, my heart would just sink and I'd be like, why the hell are you what are you doing coming back here? Because I've been in this beautiful weather, doing this amazing work, and like I'm totally kind of sizzling with like enthusiasm, and then all of a sudden I'm in London, it's grey, the energy's harsh,
Loads of people,
lots of negative energy, and I'd be on a like, it wasn't a depression, but it was like a resentful depression.
to a low.
Yeah, it was definitely a low. And what would happen is it would take me 6-7 days to kind of recalibrate and adjust myself back into that environment. And I used to feel like I used to feel a bit resentful. And then what happened was, I think it was like 4 years in, and I don't know why this happened, but it was like a natural reframing. And as ever, we landed in Heathrow. It was pissing down with rain. It was grey. But all of a sudden I started to think, oh, I'm looking forward to getting into my bed, looking forward to having a nice hot shower, looking forward to just pushing a button and the kettle goes on, just like these simple things. And I noticed that, and in that moment a question came to me, and it was, okay, so you wouldn't actually want to live there, would you? And then I realised, you know, that the reason the desert means so much to me is because of my life here. And all of a sudden it gave me a new perception of my life here, where I used to feel a bit like I had to come to London to work, and this is where I was established, and this is where my family is. But actually, you know, that really gave me another perspective. And that's nice, because it means, like, if I think about my children, they've grown up having both these places, which are so vastly different. And I think it's been beautiful for them.
And what do they think about going? How are they going there?
They absolutely love it there. I've got 3 of them coming with me in 4 weeks. And they're all grown up now, you know, but they're so excited to come. And I think it's been a blessing for my whole family. Because it just opens your perspective, you know, it opens up the aperture on your lens and makes you think a lot more about what matters.
But if you think about that, you know, when you first went into therapy, or when someone said, why don't you train as a therapist, did you ever think about this is what you'd be doing?
No, I had no idea. And
were you a bit lost before you went into therapy, would you say?
I was working like in the music industry, so I was a bit chaotic, a bit full on.
When you say music industry, in what way?
I was working with musicians and managing bands and doing stuff like that. And it wasn't good for me. And
so unsociable hours.
Really unsociable hours, lots of illegal substances. And also the interesting thing for me was that it was a real turning point, because I got taken onto the training at the Whittington. I got accepted onto that. And at the very same time, or it was like 3 days or 2 days before, I'd been offered a job that then was a lot of money.
In the music industry.
In the music industry, a lot of prestige. It was a new label. And it was like this sliding doors moment, you know, like, and of course all my friends at the time were like, don't be silly, Ben, you know what you've got to do. You've got to go down that road. It's good money. You're going to have free access to all these amazing gigs. But
this is your career, this is your industry,
But I just knew in my heart. And it was like
Was it just a feeling?
It's an instinct, isn't it?
It was heartfelt. You know, it was heartfelt, and my ego wanted me to go for the music job, you know, because it was instant gratification. And then the alternative was 4 years of being broke and struggling and working full time, and so it was.
But that seemed attractive somehow.
Well, I wouldn't say it was attractive.
What made you go there?
It was my heart. My heart knew. I just knew that, like, that's I'm never. This career is going to kill me. This career is going to be good for me and possibly save me. So, but at the time, you know, I was very conscious of the fact that our profession is very white, very middle class. Less so now, but still.
It was when we
but still, there's a long way to go. No? And again, that's where that thing came in for me, which I said to you, Dipti, which, you know, because I grew up in lots of different places and my family was a bit kind of fragmented, it's like I could fit in anywhere, but I felt like I belonged nowhere. And in a similar way, coming into the very middle class white world of psychotherapy, I'm like, wow, where do I put myself here? But I also, you know, because of all my own stuff and my relationship with my father, I've always pushed against authority. So, you know, there are parts of that I love about myself, and what I've learned is that sometimes my rebelliousness creates more work for me.
Yeah.
You know, so now I'm much better at I guess managing it, monitoring it, and being honest and knowing when, like, I need to rebel because I feel strongly, or if I'm just rebelling because I can.
The sake of rebelling.
Yeah, you have to get discerning as you get older.
Or just want attention.
Yeah, or just want attention, or not. For me, it's not attention. It's usually about feeling like if someone's trying to put me in a box, or you know, it's stuff like that I struggle with, which I don't know. Maybe in our industry, it's specifically kind of a thing, you know, with boundaries, and which of course I value and I respect them. But I think also there is an element of, if you don't move outside the box, if you don't think a bit differently, then we're only going to be where we are now.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a fear in, well, what if I try this, or what if I do that? You know, there's that element which I kind of understand. But I also think we have to be progressive.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be moving, otherwise we're stagnant and there's no
Especially
progress.
with a newer generation coming into therapy as well. You know, to make it not attractive but different for them.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think it kind of feeds into a little bit of our kind of off-air conversation. But listening to you speak, Ben, right, is we get a real sense of who you are, what you stand for. And I think knowing that about a therapist, any practitioner you work with, will inform your decision of whether you really want to work with this person or not.
For sure.
And for me, my career started off as a grief coach, and then I trained as a therapist. And the way that I showed up with my full heart as a coach is kind of different in a way as a therapist. And I'm really kind of dancing around that and questioning that and thinking, does that need to change? And, you know, and listening to you is really making my head kind of go, well, there's got to be a middle ground somewhere where people can get a real sense of your essence, so that they can choose to work with you or not. What's your take on that?
I mean, for me, how can I expect people to come and see me and disclose and show up and be brave if I'm not willing to go there myself?
Exactly.
How can I ask someone else to do something I'm not willing to do myself? For me, it doesn't sit well. It doesn't work well, and it's not where my values are. And I believe that we have to meet each other in order to work with the space between us. You know, one person doesn't have all the answers, and I think you both have to be brave in therapy, you know, and I think without that relational depth, then really how far can you go?
Yeah,
exactly.
Teach some stuff.
And is it therapy?
And is it therapy? And if you want to make really significant change, then you have to roll your sleeves up and get in and be who you are.
And get a bit dirty, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
And so the other project, you've got another project that you work on, which is for...
Yeah, that's the Greater Good Consultancy.
That's it.
So this is a social impact project that I've been slowly cultivating over the last couple of years, and it's just about to come into fruition. So there are two strands to it. One is in September, I'm opening up a low-cost clinic in Swiss Cottage. And the thinking behind that is partly to give trainee therapists a really good clinical experience of their placement. My placement was not so good, but that was a long time ago. So
is that in person?
That's in person and online.
Okay.
I've got two amazing supervisors that are going to kind of, you know, supervise the practice. It's a beautiful clinic. It's a nice environment. It will give the local community access to really good therapists that I'll cherry pick for a much lower fee. So that project is kicking off in September. And then the kind of other one that I'm going to launch probably in April next year is called Helping People Who Help People. So this is based at, you know, for kind of people that are the underpinning of our communities and our society, educators, teachers, care workers, you know, police officers, nurses, people who don't have a disposable income but are dealing with the public and dealing with people and trauma on a day-to-day basis. And you know, I guess partly this was driven from the COVID element when I used to watch everyone clap at 8 p.m. for the NHS, and then, you know, no one wants to give them a pay rise, everyone's moaning, but it's like forgotten heroes, right? And I thought, wow, these people put up with so much stuff, you know, they're not paid very well, they're not really cared for, and they impact on our societies through the kind of ripple effect. You know, if you have a teacher that is unhappy and depressed and she's teaching 30 children, there's 30 families that are then impacted by that.
Well, a lot of teachers, you know, they become like social workers or pastoral care. There's so much that they have to cover in.
But also they have to hold so much, right? And so it's mainly aimed at kind of people in those professions, with the kind of theory being that, you know, it's in giving that we truly receive. So how can we give something back to these people who are giving every day? And the cunning plan, Michaela, is that I'm going to go to organisations, because I do a lot of coaching work. I have a lot of contacts in the business world. So I'm going to go and knock on doors and basically ask for corporate sponsorship, where they sponsor a project. The first project will be free therapy, 6 months free therapy with an experienced clinician. And the second project will be a life-changing desert trip for people who help people. So those are two things that are in the mix. And I'm almost there. I've got a national advertising campaign that's going to happen in the next couple of months. So yeah, it's about bringing people together. It's about community. So for me, the projects where we can get people talking, where we can bring communities together, and we can start to encourage people to think about what they have to give instead of what they can get,
what they can take.
I love that.
You know, the road you went, the sliding doors that you said, so when you didn't go with the music and you went with the therapy, do you think you made the right decision?
100%. What do you think?
Yeah, of course you did. I think sometimes you got to take risks, right? People don't take risks. They stay with what they know, and you knew what you knew actually wasn't good for you.
That's right. I think we all know at a level.
Of course you do.
It's in our essence.
It's a bit like when the therapist told you, you're not that great. Go and take a look at yourself, you know. Right. I don't know about, and then you did.
Yeah, an instant switch, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's true, you know. We need to expose ourselves and each other to other ways of seeing and being. And I think as humans, we get stuck in patterns of behaviour, stuck in ways of seeing things, and then we think that's true. And for me, it's like we have to always challenge. You know, I have this kind of thing in me that when I have a doubt, I'm grateful that I have a doubt about myself, because I've had experiences where I've met people, you know, clinicians, where they're so long in the tooth that they think they know everything. And then I see their blind spots. And, you know, it makes me grateful. And I had one experience about 10 years ago, and I left this meeting and I thought, I never want to think that I know so much that I create a blind spot for myself, you know? So whenever I have a doubt about myself, I think, yeah, that's good. You need to question that. That's good. Let's have a healthy, you know, internal debate with yourself about what this is. So in a way, the doubt is a good sign for me to be curious about my kind of congruence in what's happening in that moment.
So as we come to the end here, what for listeners, viewers and listeners, because some people watch, some people listen, what would be the message for you to send out there to the world?
The message to send out to the whole world. compassion over conflict in our hearts, our homes, and cross borders.
Brilliant. Love that. Thanks for coming on. Been brilliant.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy, and Dipti Solanki.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to review, like and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts, and do follow us on our socials. Until next time, see you soon.